What happens when a woman marries a billionaire, but her heart belongs to someone else? Imagine standing at the altar, about to say, "I do," when the man you love walks up, not to pledge his life to you, but to expose your deepest secret. This isn't a movie. This is real life. Chik had it all. A self-made billionaire, he could have had anyone, but he chose Amanda. She was everything he wanted, beautiful, intelligent, and seemingly devoted. They met at a charity gala, and it didn't take long for Chik to fall head over heels. Amanda played the part perfectly. She was the perfect fiancée, the perfect woman. But as the wedding day approached, Chik began to notice things. Late-night phone calls, secretive messages, and a distance growing between them. He brushed it off as pre-wedding jitters. But deep down, something didn't feel right. Then, just days before the ceremony, Chik overheard a conversation that shattered his world. Amanda was on the phone, laughing with someone, speaking in a way that was too familiar. The words, "I love you," echoed in his mind. His heart sank. On the day of the wedding, as Amanda walked down the aisle, Chik stood frozen. The guests were all smiles. The string quartet played softly, but inside, Chik was dying. He had to do something. As the officiant asked, "If anyone has a reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace." Chik stood up, not to object, but to reveal the truth. He walked up to Amanda, holding an envelope. The room fell silent. He handed her the envelope. Inside were photos of Amanda with another man, taken just days before their wedding. The room gasped. Amanda's face turned pale. She stumbled back, unable to speak. Chik's voice broke the silence. "I know about your secret," he said, his voice steady but filled with pain. The guests were in shock. Amanda tried to deny it, but the evidence was undeniable. Chik had been betrayed in the worst way possible. But he wasn't done. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Chik wasn't just going to walk away. He had a plan that would expose Amanda for who she truly was. But what happened next would change everything. Stay tuned to find out how Chik turned his wedding day into a moment of brutal revenge. Chik had built everything from the ground up. A self-made billionaire, a tech genius whose innovation revolutionized industries. He was the kind of man most people envied. Luxury cars, a penthouse overlooking the skyline, vacations in places most only dreamed of. His life was everything society told him to aspire to. But in Amanda, he had found something beyond the wealth and the success. She was everything he had ever wanted. Smart, beautiful, and seemingly perfect in every way. Their relationship seemed like something straight out of a fairy tale. Amanda was the woman he could spend forever with, and he was more than ready to make her his wife. But Amanda, well, she wasn't who she appeared to be. To the world, she was the epitome of success and glamour. An influencer with millions of followers, her life seemed nothing less than perfect. Endless photos of lavish vacations, designer clothes, and fancy dinners were all carefully curated to build the illusion of happiness. But behind that carefully constructed facade, there was a side of Amanda Chik had yet to discover. A side she was doing everything to keep hidden. For Amanda, Chik was more than just a man to love. He was a means to an end. The lavish lifestyle she craved, the fame, the money, the power, he could give her all of that and more. And Chik? He had no idea. He believed in their love. He believed that the woman who held his heart felt the same. But Amanda's feelings for him, they weren't as deep as he thought. In fact, there was a secret she had been hiding for months. A secret that, if revealed, would shatter the life they were about to build together. As the wedding day drew closer, everything seemed perfect. The venue was booked, the invitations sent, and every detail of the ceremony carefully planned. Guests were arriving from all over, all eager to witness the wedding of the year. Amanda had been living the dream, playing her part to perfection. But what no one knew was that as the vows were about to be exchanged, the carefully constructed world they had built together was about to come crashing down. The night before the wedding, Chik found himself unable to sleep. He had never felt this uneasy, this unsettled. He kept thinking about Amanda's strange behavior, how she had been distant, how she had been taking phone calls that she quickly ended whenever he entered the room. He tried to push the thoughts aside, telling himself that it was just pre-wedding nerves. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Little did he know, Amanda's secret was already on the verge of being exposed. The phone call he had overheard weeks earlier, the whispers in the dark, it was all leading to this. Chik was about to step into a world of heartbreak and betrayal. The woman he trusted most, the woman he was about to marry, had been hiding something from him for far too long, and soon the truth would come to light in front of everyone. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Chik was on the edge of a life-changing decision. Would he go through with the wedding, despite the growing doubts in his mind? Or would the truth tear apart everything he thought he knew about love, loyalty, and trust? As the clock ticked down to the ceremony, the answers would soon be revealed. Would Amanda's secret stay buried, or would it change everything? To the world, Chik and Amanda were everything anyone could ever want. A power couple, the perfect blend of wealth and beauty. Chik with his billion-dollar tech empire, and Amanda, the influencer whose every post was a glimpse into a life most could only dream of. Expensive gifts, tropical vacations, and glitzy nights out. They shared it all on social media. Their followers watched them closely, envying every moment. And Chik? He saw Amanda as the woman he'd been waiting for, the one he could trust with his heart. Every gift he gave, every gesture was his way of showing her just how much she meant to him. But little did he know, Amanda wasn't as invested as he thought. Behind the glittering photos and carefully crafted captions, something was slowly unraveling. Chik had always been the one to give. He was generous, loyal, and loved her with all his heart. But Amanda, she began to pull away. Her phone became something she guarded closely, always hidden from Chik's view. Late nights, when she should have been home with him, she was out with friends, and more often than not, her phone would buzz, a message from someone Chik didn't know. It was subtle at first, a change in her tone, a shift in her focus. She wasn't the same Amanda he had fallen in love with, but he kept pushing the thoughts away. He wanted to believe that everything was fine, that his love for her was enough. And then, the phone calls started. Amanda, speaking in hushed tones, words too quiet for Chik to fully hear. He noticed it more and more as the days passed. Her dismissiveness, her coldness when he asked about the late nights or who she was talking to. But he brushed it off. She was just stressed, he thought. They were getting married after all. And in the back of his mind, he still believed in the love they shared. One evening, things took a turn. Chik returned home early, hoping to surprise Amanda with a dinner he'd set up for them. As he walked through the door, he heard Amanda laughing on the phone. She was in the living room, sitting comfortably with a glass of wine, speaking with someone. It sounded like the kind of laugh that only came with familiarity, with someone you had a real connection with. Chik paused, standing in the doorway, trying to make out the conversation. The voice on the other end was soft, warm, but not his. Amanda's smile faded for just a second as she glanced over at him, but she quickly picked up the conversation again, not even bothering to hide it. Chik felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He couldn't make out the rest of the conversation, but it was enough. He stepped back, leaving the room without her noticing, his mind racing. The laughter echoed in his ears as he tried to make sense of it. Who was she talking to like that? What was so secretive about it? That night, as he lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of uncertainty pressed down on him. What was Amanda hiding? How deep did this go? Was it just a misunderstanding? Or was there more to the story than he could possibly imagine? But the next day, Chik's worst fears were confirmed. As Amanda's phone buzzed again, he picked it up without thinking. scrolling through the messages that she had failed to hide. It wasn't just one message, it was an entire conversation. A conversation between Amanda and another man. Words like, "I can't wait to be with you again," and "I'm just doing this for the wedding, don't worry," sent a chill down his spine. It wasn't just a flirtation, it was a plan. A plan to marry him, get what she wanted, and then leave him behind. The truth, hidden behind a veil of social media posts and glamorous dates, was darker than anything Chik had imagined. Amanda hadn't been in this for love. She had been playing him all along. And that night, Chik had heard enough to know that everything was about to change. But he still didn't know just how far she was willing to go. If this part is making sense, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Let's see who's really watching to this point. Chik had always been the kind of man who went above and beyond for the people he loved. He was a giver. Whether it was gifts, time, or love, he gave it all. So when he decided to surprise Amanda with something special, he had no idea that it would lead him to the discovery that would unravel everything. It was supposed to be a simple gesture, a moment to show her how much she meant to him. But when Chik walked into the apartment, gift in hand, he was not prepared for what he was about to hear. Amanda was sitting on the couch, her legs crossed, a glass of wine in hand. But there was something different about the way she was speaking, the way she smiled. It was like she was in on a secret, something she didn't want Chik to know. He stood quietly in the doorway, just out of sight, listening as she chatted away on the phone, unaware of his presence. Her voice was light, almost playful, but the words that followed cut through the air like a blade. "I know, I'm doing my part," Amanda said, her tone a mix of sweetness and coldness. "I'll marry him, get everything I want, and then I'll walk away. He's a billionaire. Once I've got what I need, I'll leave him, just like we planned." Chik's heart stopped. The words echoed in his mind, each one sinking deeper into his chest. "I'll marry him, get everything I want, and then I'll walk away." He felt his grip on the gift he was holding loosen, his hands trembling. No, he thought, this couldn't be happening. But as Amanda continued, talking about her plans to marry him for his wealth, it became clear. This wasn't just some misunderstanding. This was betrayal, planned, deliberate, and cold. In that moment, everything he had believed in, the love he had fought for, the life he thought they would build together, collapsed. It was as if the air had been knocked out of him, leaving him gasping for breath. He couldn't move. He stood frozen, listening to her talk about him like he was nothing more than a stepping stone to something bigger. But it didn't end there. Amanda, still blissfully unaware of Chik's presence, continued to plan her future with someone else. "Don't worry," she said. "He'll never know. He's too blind to see it. I just need to get through the wedding, and then we can have it all." Chik's world began to spin. He had loved her with everything he had. He had trusted her completely. And now, everything was a lie. The woman he had chosen to spend the rest of his life with, she was nothing like he thought. She wasn't the loving, devoted fiancée. She was a woman who saw him as nothing more than a tool for her own gain. Chik's hands began to shake uncontrollably. His vision blurred as he looked down at the engagement ring meant for Amanda, the symbol of his love, the promise he had made. It suddenly felt like nothing more than a cruel joke. He could feel the weight of the ring pressing against his palm, but it wasn't love he felt. It was betrayal. It was the overwhelming sting of being used. Chik couldn't stay there. He couldn't look at her anymore. He needed to get out. Without a word, he turned and walked out of the apartment, the door slamming shut behind him. He didn't know where he was going. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, pain, confusion, rage. He wandered through the streets aimlessly, the world around him moving in a blur. It was as if he was living in a dream, a nightmare, and he couldn't wake up. He didn't know what to do next. The woman he loved, the woman he thought he would marry, had just shattered everything in one conversation. The question lingered in his mind. What now? What was he supposed to do with this broken heart? What do you think Chik should do next? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The moment Chik confronted Amanda, he knew things would never be the same. He had the proof, the undeniable evidence of her betrayal, the words she had spoken so casually on the phone. There was no turning back. But what he didn't expect was her response. When he finally laid everything out before her, expecting some shred of remorse, some hint of guilt, she simply looked at him. Her eyes were cold, almost calculating, as if she'd been waiting for this moment all along. "I don't know what you're talking about," Amanda said, her voice too calm for someone caught in the act. "You're overreacting. It's not what you think." Her words were smooth, rehearsed, like she had said them 1,000 times before. And that was it. No apology, no regret, just a chilling indifference. She wasn't sorry. In fact, she didn't even seem fazed. Chik, standing there, holding the shattered pieces of what he thought was his future, was left in stunned silence. She wasn't going to stop the wedding. Not for him. Not for anyone. It was all a part of the plan. The wedding, the ring, the lavish life. It was never about love. It was about a life she had always wanted, a life he could give her. Chik's mind raced, each thought crashing into the next. He was drowning in confusion, his world spinning, the trust he had placed in Amanda unraveling faster than he could process. "Why?" Chik asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you do this? I loved you. I trusted you with everything." Amanda didn't flinch. She just shrugged, as if it was all a game. "It's just business, Chik," she said. "You never really understood that, did you?" And in that moment, Chik began to question everything. Had he been blinded by his own wealth? By his desire to be loved? Had he been so caught up in the fantasy of what he wanted, this perfect relationship, this perfect life, that he never saw what was right in front of him? He felt like a fool, a man so desperate for love that he had ignored the warning signs, ignored the small moments where Amanda's indifference had crept in. As Amanda continued to lie, to deny, it was as if each word she spoke was another wound to his heart. His mind kept replaying every moment they had shared, the vacations, the gifts, the laughter. Was it all a lie? Had she always been playing him, pretending to love him while secretly planning her escape? Or was there more to this? Was there something deeper at play here? Chik's thoughts spiraled. What if Amanda wasn't just after his wealth? What if there was more to her than he had realized? He began to think back to the things he had ignored, the tension in her family, the way Amanda's father was always demanding more from her, always pressing her to secure a life of luxury. Was this the pressure she had been under? What if her actions weren't entirely driven by greed, but by something darker? By the need to escape her own circumstances, to prove something to herself and everyone around her. Amanda had always played the part of the perfect fiancée, the woman who had everything under control, who was in charge of her destiny. But what if beneath that perfect mask was a woman struggling with her own insecurities, with fears of never being enough, never having enough? What if her desire for wealth wasn't just about the money, but about proving her worth to a world that had never given her a chance? What if she wasn't just using Chik? What if, in some twisted way, she thought this was the only way to survive? But none of that mattered now. Chik had seen the truth, and it cut deeper than anything he could have imagined. The woman he had loved, the woman he had trusted, had used him. She had betrayed him in the most unimaginable way. The wedding, the life they had been building together, it was all just a facade. As the confrontation continued, Chik's mind kept circling back to one question. Had he been the fool? Had he been so desperate to believe in love that he ignored the warning signs? He couldn't answer that yet. But the truth was clear. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a betrayal of everything he had ever believed about love, loyalty, and his own judgment. Amanda wasn't just after his wealth. She was after something far more elusive. And now, Chik had to face the painful reality. The woman he thought he knew was someone entirely different. The woman he thought he could trust had been planning her escape the whole time. What would he do now? What was left for him? The day had finally arrived. The moment that was supposed to be one of the happiest of Chik's life was now the most excruciating. As Amanda walked down the aisle, her arm elegantly draped in her father's, every step seemed to echo in Chik's mind. The sound of the soft music, the rustling of the guests, the flashing cameras, they all seemed distant, muffled, as his focus locked onto Amanda. She looked beautiful, the way he had always imagined his bride would look. Perfect. But there was something about her smile, something hollow in her eyes. Her smile didn't reach them. It was as if she was playing a part, and he could see it, feel it. His heart pounded, each beat heavy with the weight of the truth he had uncovered. Was this really his forever? Could it really be? He had trusted her, loved her, believed that they had something real. But now, all he could see was the woman who had planned to betray him from the start. He had every reason to walk away, to stop this wedding before it even began, but there he stood, torn between his heart and the truth. Amanda reached the altar, and for a moment, everything felt surreal. The guests were all watching, expectant, waiting for the ceremony to continue. The officiant asked if there were any reasons why they should not be married, but the weight of that question felt like it hung in the air forever. Chik's hands clenched into fists, his body trembling with the anger, confusion, and heartbreak. He couldn't keep pretending, not anymore. Just when everyone thought the wedding would go on as planned, when they thought they were witnessing a fairy tale moment, Chik stepped forward. The world seemed to slow down. The officiant paused, the room falling silent. Chik reached for the microphone, his heart in his throat, his hands shaking, but his mind made up. And then he spoke. "I'm sorry, but I can't marry her." Chik's voice echoed through the room, every word cutting through the tension like a knife. The crowd froze. Amanda's face drained of color, her smile faltering, but she quickly masked it with confusion. She looked at him as if she couldn't comprehend what was happening. "What do you mean, Chik?" she whispered, her voice trembling. But it was too late. Chik wasn't backing down. The truth had to come out. This wasn't just about her betrayal. It was about him finding the strength to confront the truth, to stop living a lie. Chik took a deep breath, his eyes locking with Amanda's, his voice steady and cold. "I know about your plan, about everything, about how you've been using me. I'm not your fool, Amanda, and I will not marry someone who doesn't love me, not like this." There was a collective gasp from the crowd. Phones flew into the air, cameras flashing. Live streams flooded social media with this shocking revelation, the world now witnessing the unraveling of a wedding that was meant to be a celebration. But it wasn't a celebration. It was the moment Amanda's betrayal was exposed in front of everyone, family, friends, strangers, all seeing her for who she truly was. Amanda stood there, frozen, her expression shifting from disbelief to panic. Her hands trembled as she reached for Chik, but he stepped back, refusing to touch her. The woman he thought he knew, the woman he had trusted, was no longer the person standing before him. Her facade had crumbled. The lies she had been weaving for months were laid bare for the world to see. The room buzzed with whispers, the sound of disbelief ringing in the air. The wedding, the promises, the vows, everything they had been building up to was gone, exposed in the most public way possible. The betrayal wasn't just a private matter anymore, it was a spectacle. The cameras didn't stop rolling. The guests' eyes darted between Chik and Amanda, unsure of what to make of it. Some of them were shocked, others simply watching in disbelief. This wasn't the wedding anyone had anticipated. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was the brutal truth. The wedding wasn't just cancelled, it was exposed. The lies, the deception, everything Amanda had planned was now out in the open. And Chik, he had finally done what he should have done long ago. He had called her out for the woman she truly was. Chik stood there, staring at Amanda, his heart heavy, but his mind clear. He wasn't going to play the part anymore. The world had witnessed the end of a dream he once had, and with it, the end of the illusion he had built with Amanda. And in that moment, as Amanda's reality crashed down around her, Chik realized something crucial. He didn't need her. He had the strength to walk away, and no matter how broken he felt, he was free. The question now was, what would Amanda do next? As the chaos unfolded around him, Chik felt the weight of everything he had just done. The cameras were still flashing, the whispers growing louder, but none of it reached him. He didn't look back. He couldn't. Amanda was crumbling before the crowd, her facade shattered, her carefully constructed life falling apart in front of her. She had no words, no way to explain what had just been exposed. She stood there frozen as the weight of her betrayal hung heavily in the air. But Chik? He walked away with dignity. He didn't need to say another word. The truth had already been spoken. As he stepped out of the chapel, the weight in his chest seemed to lighten with every step. He didn't feel like the man who had once been in love with a lie. He felt like someone who had found his own strength. For so long he had been trapped in a dream that wasn't his. He had believed in Amanda, in their future together, but now all of that was gone. What remained was the painful but necessary truth. Chik had learned the hardest lesson of all. Love, when built on lies, could never last. No matter how much he had tried to give, no matter how deeply he had loved, the foundation had been flawed from the start. But that was the past. He had come to terms with it. The pain was real, but it was a pain that would fade in time. What mattered now was the truth he had found within himself. For the first time in a long while, Chik wasn't afraid of what the future held. He had his dignity. He had his integrity. And for the first time, he knew that he could rebuild. He could find love again, but more importantly, he could find peace within himself. In the end, Chik found something far more valuable than money or status. He found the truth. And sometimes, that's all we need to move forward. To face the truth, no matter how painful, and to rise from it stronger than before. The road ahead would be uncertain. There would be days when the scars from this betrayal would resurface, but Chik had learned that it was possible to heal. And as the sun set on the wreckage of what was supposed to be the happiest day of his life, he knew one thing for sure: he would never again settle for a love that wasn't real. What do you think really happened that day? Was justice served, or did Amanda get what she deserved? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.